What up, world? And welcome back to another episode of the Seeds of Success podcast. It's your host, Colin Walters, and I want to bring to you a quick story from my journey in technology sales. This was something that I was reflecting on the other day when I was diving back into an old school sales book from Sandler methodology, and it had me thinking about this story that I want to share. And so basically, this is when I first started out. I'm going to share the story. I'm going to talk about what went well, then talk about what I learned, and then how I acted immediately on the failure that I had experienced in order to actually create a full-blown success story for myself from that point forward in my career. And so to get to the story, I had just started out in technology sales. I think that was in like my second or third week with a company called Nintex, a software automation company out of Bellevue, Washington. And I was feeling pretty good. I was feeling confident in myself. It was second week on the job, and we had gone into a room with, it was like 7 or 8 of us that were sitting around a table with our VP at the time. And we were doing some mock calls, right? So role playing, where our VP was acting as the customer, and then we were responsible for being the sales reps on the call. And so we went around the horn, and I felt pretty good with my first time. I was feeling myself a little bit, and second time came around, and we got into the mock call, into the role play, and my mind went blank. When I say that I had no thoughts processing in my brain, I mean literally not a thing was processing. And he had asked me a super simple question, and I drew a blank. I had nothing to say. I couldn't muster anything, and I fell flat on my feet. And I tried to stumble through something, and it sounded so bad. We shut it down and didn't even continue. I think we tried to restart or something, and I just didn't have it. I lost it. I don't know what happened. I got no rhyme or reason for it, but I was pouring sweat. I had beads of sweat driven down my face, my forehead. Yeah, it was not a good situation. And I was super frustrated with myself at that moment in time. And so as soon as we left that meeting, I went immediately back to my desk, and I used what I was feeling to put into action immediately. And so what I did is sat down at my desk. I put my headphones on. I didn't want to be bothered. I didn't want to be talked to. I didn't want to lose my focus on getting redemption and making this a learning opportunity. And so I put those headphones on, and I hand wrote out exactly what I would have said, redoing the entire thing all over again. And so it was the actual technique that we were practicing was an upfront contract at the time. And so basically setting a clear and crystal agenda for the call. And so I went and I hand wrote what I wanted my perfect upfront contract to be. I must have wrote this thing, I'm not kidding you, probably 45, 50 times, just over and over and over again, until I was just banging this thing out in a handwritten note within a matter of minutes. And then I ran through it a couple times. At this point in time, I was commuting back to my home via bus, via train. It was a crazy, a crazy commute, but I used that time to rehearse in my head, exactly what I had written out. And then I got home that night, and I immediately put on my running shoes, and I went out my door, and I ran 8 miles, and I repeated this thing over and over and over again until this thing was so ingrained in my head that I was basically dreaming about this upfront contract. I was just so determined and committed to make this a learning opportunity and to get better and learn from that situation and that failure. And so again, on this run, 8 miles out loud, being able to constantly tell myself exactly what I was going to be doing the next day, repeating this thing over and over. And so I got back into the office that next day, and I crushed it. And I felt so good. I knew this thing like the back of my hand, and I created basically a structure. It wasn't like an exact, like an exact, tailored, crystallized, super like specific upfront contract or agenda, it was something that I would be able to plug and play for the duration of my career. And so this was something where it was a framework that I wrote out. And, from that point on, I have nailed my upfront contracts and agendas on sales calls like nobody's business. And it's something that I believe is a fundamental of every sales call. And this is something that can be, for everybody listening, directly applicable to having a hard conversation with somebody in your family or in your relationships, or, even just having a general conversation and just having control of what you actually want to talk about and say, and having like a plan and an outline. And so it's super helpful for really anything. But specifically like running meetings, orchestrating meetings, being able to articulate to anybody that you're speaking with what you want to cover. And so, but the main message here is that, whenever you come across something that can be perceived as a failure, I challenge you and want to challenge you to use it as a learning opportunity. And in order to actually create a learning opportunity, we have to do something about it, right? And so it's basically take what you just, quote, failed at or didn't execute like you wanted to. Say maybe it's a race, maybe it's a project for work that you were working on, maybe it's a conversation you had with a kid or a relative or a friend, or you could have done something better at work, or you could have done things around the house a little better, whatever you wanted to do. But my challenge to you is to act on it immediately. That's the takeaway. And that's the thing that, because we can get these emotions of either anger or disappointment or frustration, with ourselves for not having done it the way that we wanted, or not having executed on that task like we wanted, or like we would have preferred to have done. But it is 100% within our control to then go take immediate action on that in order to make it a learning opportunity. And so that's the story that I wanted to share with you all, in hopes that you can potentially relate that to anything that you are either going through or have gone through or might go through here in the future. And so, one, identify the potential failure at hand. 2, go act on it immediately. And 3, use that as the learning opportunity to go create a better version of yourself and a better version of that opportunity and that scenario that you just experienced. So that's what I have for you today. I hope that's helpful in some way. Let me know if you've had any experiences that are similar or something that you can relate to. I love hearing people's stories, especially when it comes to something that made us sweat and something that we were super uncomfortable with in the moment, because I felt like I had the weight of the world watching me. And I mean, there was like 12 people in there watching me absolutely fail at this thing hard, but it's all about what are we going to do with it, right? So, and here we are, here I am, I believe a much better polished sales professional and professional in my craft and what I do because of that moment. So, hope you're having a great day. I hope that helps in any way. And I will see you on the next episode.